picks and we're making some cash, yeah. We're back. We are back. Crushed last week. Plus 21.9 units. Unheard of. Actually pretty ridiculous that we got that far. That was one of my best weekends I've ever had. I feel like we're rounding into form. New strategies for this year are working. We've had profitable weeks every week, I think. So far, we're up 32.2 units on the year. It's looking really good. We hit everything last week. Even the ones we missed were close. But we hit on Rams, Chiefs with the points. We had the Rams-Chiefs parlay that I put on Twitter at Mike Mush Sports. Always check out there for more. I've been putting, parlays and picks up there constantly, even if they're not in the show. Although we have plenty of main ones we're going to get to today. I hit Cup last week. I had Fournette receptions. That crushed. I had Kelsey, Josh Allen rushing yards, A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase. We hit one for plus 750. We hit one for plus 781. This strategy of using the same game parlays, getting them to synergize together so they make sense, high payouts so we don't have to hit every single bet. It's looking good, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident. I have takes on both games this week. We can dive a little deeper into each one. I have 5 picks as of now. This is 10. 5 picks as of now. We'll get to it more towards the end. But I want to dive in and just break down these games first because they're interesting. So we'll start with Bengals-Chiefs, although I got to say, I know why it is because it's further East Coast, but I would have imagined that in a perfect world they would have made the second game Bengals-Chiefs, although both games are going to be good. So let's go chronological, baby, like the clock. Bengals-Chiefs, the only thing scaring me about this is how much everyone agrees on it. Most people I see like the Chiefs and they like the over. And I do too. And we'll get into the specific reasons, but that always scares me. So I'm going to try to get a little more creative with the actual picks. But let's go to both these teams because they just played not that long ago. Let's pull up that box score quickly. Now, I do know that the Chiefs were down 2 linemen going into this game. And it was still a shootout, and it still came down to that final drive where there were a million penalties that allowed the Bengals to kick the field goal with no time left and score. But if they didn't get those penalties, even with 2 linemen down, and even in Cincinnati, it would have likely been, it was 4th and goal on the 1. They go for it. No gain. Offsetting penalties. Incomplete again, and they get the defensive penalty here. So, look, the penalty happened. I get it. But if it didn't happen, we would be looking at a tie game 31-31 with a minute left for Kansas City to go 99 yards. And if they can go 70 whatever yards in 13 seconds, I sure as hell believe that in a minute they probably would have scored and won this game, even down 2 linemen, even, all the things against them, Burrow throwing for 450 and 4 touchdowns, all that kind of stuff. And it was in Cincinnati. So that alone, I lean Chiefs, right? Then I also have to think about, I have no doubt that this Bengals offense can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs offense. That's a really tall order, but they can do it. I'm concerned about the offensive line. Burrow took 9 sacks last week. Most of the time, you don't even win that game, so you don't even get here. I'm concerned with the fact that the Chiefs saw that happen, right? Like, that seems like an obvious thing, but if the Bengals come out of that game with just 3 sacks allowed and really keep Burrow upright and have a lot of creative ways to avoid sacks, more screens, more stuff, which I'm sure they will do, I think they would have a different game plan. But now that they smell blood in the water, it's going to be easier for them to game plan some stuff to get after Burrow and it could really disrupt the game. Now, that can cut both ways. I mean, maybe the Bengals come back with more screens because they know that the Chiefs are ready for it, whatever. But it does look like pointing out a weakness, even though everyone knew it was there. I'm worried about that a little bit. And really, the Chiefs' defense has been pretty solid. Now, is Tyrann Mathieu going to play this week? Follow the Link podcast, by the way, which is an audio-only podcast that I do, which is not sports-related, but covers just about everything else. Movies, music, TV, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I'm spelling his name right. Tyron with an A. Latest. Questionable. Honey Badgers playing full practice yesterday. Okay, so that's huge. Brings them back. Not a problem. Their defense is playing 10 times better than the Bengals defense. And people might go, oh, Bengals just held the Titans to blah, 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 and picked Tannehill 4 times. All right, fine. My stance on this Bengals team, who I've liked throughout the year, is they seem to have a good, not great defense, right? Which is fine. They have good players. They are a little banged up. They're going to be missing a couple people. They were last week also. But they've given up points to not great situations here. And, so have the Chiefs, obviously. But I think Cincinnati's defense has a lot more question marks to answer. For example, they give up 24 to the Vikings. That's fine. They hold down the Bears. I mean, those teams aren't world beaters. And this is week 1. Let's go back from the end of the season. It's much more accurate. They give up 16 to the Browns. Okay, the Browns stink. They give up 21 to Huntley, right? Oh, this wasn't even Huntley. It was Josh Johnson. And this was a blowout, so, maybe they let their foot off the gas, but whatever. That's a team you should have probably blown out if your defense was, really actually good. Broncos and Drew Lock, you can hold them down, but what does it actually mean, right? He's so bad. I could go on and on about Drew Lock. Go to the previous videos for that. They face the Niners. They give up 26. All right. What was the situation in this one? Garoppolo threw 41 times. That's weird. This was the game where Kittle had a monster game. If Kittle did this to the Bengals, what the hell is Travis Kelce going to do to them? The same thing. So there's a weakness there. We also went over last week how the Bengals give up the most explosive rushing plays almost in the league, or it was at the time, whoever was remaining in the playoffs last week. They did hold Derrick Henry down pretty well, but I think Foreman broke a big run, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that 2 weeks in a row. And that doesn't mean that the Chiefs are going to really run the ball, but it does mean that when they do run the ball, they still have the opportunity to break one, especially with the change of pace when the safeties are dropping back because of all the passing and all that kind of stuff. So I just don't know how I feel about this Bengals defense in comparison to even the Bills defense we saw last week, because the Bills defense is solid and got absolutely shredded. I mean, this team gave up 34 points and lost to Mike White at quarterback, who was a legend for a week. But, I don't know about all that. They gave up 41 to this Browns team who ran all over them. Look at this box score. Chubb went for 137. I mean, I just don't have enough confidence in this Bengals defense to place any bets on them. And so part of me wants to zag while everyone else is zigging. But the Chiefs' defense is better and the Chiefs' offense is better, and they're at home. Mahomes is much better protected than Burrow, and better fleet of foot to get out of there if he's not. Mahomes also does run a lot when he needs to, and we saw it last week. You forget during the regular season when he's banged up, they don't ask him to do that, but he can really move. Burrow can move, but not like that. I'm just struggling to find a spot where the Bengals have an advantage here. Even the star receiver, it's call it a wash between Chase and Hill, okay? Chase and Hill sounds like a really, like a knockoff Taysom Hill, or whatever the joke is there. Kelce, much better than Uzoma, right? I guess you have better depth at receiver for Cincinnati. I don't know what on the defense is that much better. They're probably comparable, and I really think the Chiefs have better players at least, or more depth, but even call them a wash. I don't see one advantage that the Bengals really have here. So I'm hard-pressed to... I don't want to lay 7. I mean, it's gotten up to 7.5 in some places. I find that a little crazy. especially since this is probably a shootout. It probably looks somewhat similar to last week, but like expecting Burrow to do what Josh Allen did last week is pretty harsh, and I was the biggest Josh Allen denier up until last week, but I give it up now. I'm done. He's great. He was great. I get it. I guess the Gabriel Davis thing, shredding them, is something you look at like, wow, are Chase and T. Higgins just going to do whatever they want? I'm not saying Burrow can't match what Allen did. He absolutely can. He can surpass it. But you have to assume that he's going to do that to even stay within striking distance in this game. Is he going to outplay Mahomes in Kansas City? Allen didn't. I don't know if anyone's capable. If Allen couldn't do it last week in a basically perfect game, I don't know how Burrow is going to do that much better than Mahomes here. So I got the picks here, and I'm spoiling it a little bit, but we'll get to it at the end. I don't have it in me to see the path to victory for the Bengals. I guess you just get the ball last. And same as Josh Allen, just don't leave 13 seconds. But their defense alarms me much more than the Chiefs' defense alarms me. And because of the offensive line difference, which is massive to me, that's worth a lot of points. So you factor in the home field, which is at least 2. You factor in the offensive line, which is at least 2, 2.5, maybe 3. You're up near 5. You factor in the difference at quarterback. Mahomes is worth a point over any other quarterback, whether it's Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or whoever. I don't care. So you're up near 6. And then we're talking about just action gets you near 7 and 7.5, and that's where the line is. That's how I feel about it. But then I am willing to factor in the defense being different. And I kind of think it should be probably... It should be where it is. It could get to 8. It won't shock me. It's not going to shock anybody if Kansas City puts up 50 in this game. So I want to stay away from the spread in a shootout. And if you want to take the Bengals because of that, I get it. But I don't really want to wager my money on a team that I think might give up 50. And the Chiefs might give up 50, but I think they have a better path to victory attacking that offensive line. So that's pretty much loosely where I stand on that. And we'll get into the specifics of the picks in a minute after we go over the Rams and Niners. This game, what do you do with this game? Because to me, the spread is a little too big. It started around 3. It's up near 3.5. I think these teams are about even. I was concerned about the Niners' health last week with Warner and Bosa playing injured. They looked fine. They have another week to get healthy. I can't really factor that in too much, although the Rams do seem like the healthier team to me. Defenses are probably about even. I actually think this Niners defense looks pretty similar to how the Bucs defense looked last week. Really strong front seven. Some questions in the secondary, although their secondary is better than the Bucs. But it's a similar kind of deal. And if the Rams were able to move the ball that well on the Bucs, I think they're going to move the ball on the Niners. I don't think they're going to run the ball well at all, because this Niners run D over the past couple of weeks is one of the best in the league. But I don't think they're going to run it. I think they're just going to come out and sling it, and I think they probably learned from last week when they get up and they try too hard to run the ball. They tried to sit on it. Cam Akers gets 24 carries for 48 yards, fumbled twice, and you're like, hey, you were throwing constantly. It was fine. Just keep throwing it. I don't care if you're up 3. I don't care if you're up 7. I don't care if you're up 14. I don't care if you're up 21. I can keep going. Times tables are easy. Throw the ball. It works. They have to have learned from that, right? So I think game plan-wise, advantage Rams there. Also game plan-wise, Shanahan has just owned McVay constantly. But these two know each other so well. They've played twice already. They played twice every year. I gotta expect some regression to the mean, right? Like, McVay, He's got to have some win coming. I can't imagine he's just going to get stomped out over and over and over and over. And I think the Jalen Ramsey piece is important. I don't know what he does in terms of, like, does he shadow Debo? Can he? I don't know any of that, because that's not a great matchup for him, because Debo is wildly physical, and so is Ramsey, but when you meet your match, the advantage gets taken away a little bit, right? So I see the Niners knowing exactly what to do here, and I see the Rams knowing exactly what to do here, and I think both coaches know each other so well that I think betting either side on the spread or the money line is really hard to do. I'm trying not to overthink it, right? Like, you got to get really savvy to see who's going to win this game. My initial thought was lean Rams. And then I'm like, well, the Niners have proven it to me over and over and over and over, and the spread is wrong. So I don't want to... my estimation is that the spread is wrong. Mostly because of the lack of home field advantage for the Rams, right? You can't give them 3. There's going to be more Niners fans there than Rams fans, probably. You can give them 1.5, maybe. And then I guess if you think the Rams are the better team, bump it up to 2, but no more than 2. And now it's at 3.5, and I'm like, what? That's through a key number, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's part of me that thinks the Rams win and the Niners cover 3.5. But if that's my scenario, I kind of just want to stay away from it, right? And I'll lean more towards props, knowing I don't think the Rams are going to run the ball that well. I think they're going to throw it a lot. I don't see any answer for Cooper Kupp. Nobody has had one, and the Niners aren't having Deion Sanders walk through the door. I think Jimmy G is a little underrated in this game just because he's not playing in the snow like last week, and people just saw that. And, you know, I don't know. I'm about 2 minds on Jimmy G. I see him play well for 3 quarters and then struggle for a drive horribly where he throws a pick and you're like, what just happened? And that's just kind of who he is. And you could say that about Stafford too, but at least Stafford is going against a weaker secondary than Jimmy G is. I just don't want to hitch my wagon to either side. I want to be able to enjoy the game a little more, which matters. And I think if you have a strong feeling towards either team, you're kidding yourself a little bit. These teams know each other too well to try to outsmart them. This is going to be close. This is going to be the Niners playing power football, trying to control the clock with long drives, and this is going to be the Rams probably just refusing to run it ever, quick strike offense, and which team can end up doing their game plan better. And both defenses are just going to be playing balls to the wall, let your star players carry you the whole time. I don't know how to find a difference here. I honestly, I can't really do it. So this game is going to be featured way less on my card. But I do think there's something to both these teams where the Rams could have won this game by a lot more if they fixed a couple of things and didn't have 2 fluky fumbles. And the Niners probably could have lost. I mean, probably. They got insane help from their special teams, which counts. But if you remove some of those fluky things, the fumbles, punt blocks, missed field goals, stuff like that, we're not even talking about this matchup at all. Now, that's kind of irrelevant because this matchup has so much history behind it that now this is all that matters. But I'm just saying maybe that's why it gets pushed up to 3.5, right? Because Vegas knows, like, hey, if the Rams beat the Bucks by 17, no one would be batting an eyelash at the spread right now. And if it were the Packers, who knows what we would be talking about. So I just have this strong feeling that the Rams can't run the ball. That's where I'm getting with this. I don't think they can do it. I don't see how that changes. They weren't able to do it against a Bucs defense that is very stout against the run. Niners are probably better, if not equal. Debo and Kittle can break games. Kupp can break a game. There's just too much to cancel out here. So I'd rather just go with what players I think will perform and deal with that. Because who's going to guard Cooper Kupp? I mean, Whether they win or lose, who's going to guard him? You can double him. You can do whatever you want. He got doubled and almost found the end zone 2 plays in a row to win the game at the end of the Rams-Bucks game. So you can't guard this guy. And it's going to look similar. He's going to get the ball a lot. So the Rams not being able to run it, the Niners playing power football, probably running it. You get Debo. Whoever knows what Kittle's going to do. I kind of like the Debo side of things a little more. Even though he's going against Ramsey, I think this defensive line for the Rams has been so good, and Kittle is such an elite blocker that he's going to have to stay in to block. He doesn't have to, but it's a huge advantage if they do, right? Because they want to control the clock. They know the Rams are going to throw a lot. They don't want to keep giving them the ball back. It's the polar opposite of the other game, right? Those teams are just going to go flash down the field as fast as possible, score, and give it back. The Niners are going to play keep away a little bit, both because it's prudent and it's the strength of their offense. So all these reasons talk me into the Niners a little bit, but I know for a fact that Aaron Donald can just ruin Jimmy G's day. And if he gets up the middle twice and Jimmy G throws bad picks, which he can, it's going to be hard. Also, if it gets into a shootout, you got to like the Rams. So this is just about imposing your will and the game style and the game flow. And whoever is able to do that early, I might like hopping on a live bet for that team to keep their lead. Because if the Rams have to play from behind, the Niners pass rush gets going. The Rams have to go down the field. They become one-dimensional. The Niners can start stringing together long drives, control the clock. I see that going their way. If the Rams get ahead early, they can really just stomp on your throat and keep throwing to the point where they're up 21 and they learned from last week and don't blow it again and don't fumble the football. Maybe put Sony Michel in there instead of Cam Akers, who just came back. Maybe they learned from that mistake. So if you look at the first quarter, maybe I'll make a live bet. Again, follow at Mike Mush Sports on Twitter and Instagram for more up-to-the-minute stuff. But I don't really think there's a good way to handicap the side for this game. And I think a lot of people are kidding themselves if they are. So let's get into the picks, huh? Let's do it. Now we're going to break down 5 different picks I like here. You could do, first one is going to be simple, and you could do a traditional tease here, but with all the bets available that we have now, alternate lines at any line, you pick your parameters. I don't even see the point in doing a teaser anymore. Even if it comes out to 7 points or 6 points on both, just choose the exact spread and over-under that you like. So that's what I did. So I parlayed Chiefs money line with over 47.5. 48's a nice number for me. I think this goes well over 50. I think it could go over 60. Because even last week in Bills Chiefs, we saw it have a little bit of a slower start. I mean, still pretty good, but it really ramped up at the end, and I don't see why this would be any different. And those odds come out to minus 126. So that's a little bit of my balancer. That's my standard bet, because we haven't been doing those much. We have been doing much more of the player props, which we'll get to. I have one next that pays through the roof. But I really like having some balance here. And like I said, I can't have the balance be in the Niners-Rams game because I just don't know what's going to happen there. I see a lot of different outcomes possible, and I think people are kidding themselves if they have a real feel for that one. So this may be a little square. It may be too public, but I like those lines and I like these odds. It's hard for me to imagine the Chiefs losing this football game. They feel destined to win the Super Bowl. To me, it's like, I can't imagine who's going to stop them. I've had Chiefs bets to win the Super Bowl since before the season, and it looked a little rocky, but it has come together now. And I just think that over 47.5 feels really free. You're going to have a flurry where there's 28 points in a quarter. Like, that might happen. And I don't see either of these offenses rolling over. And in fact, if there's a big lead, it's probably better because neither of these teams are really going to focus so hard on running the ball and controlling the clock. And whoever's behind is going to have quick strike offense. So, and the back and forth is good too. Like all the parameters to me work out for an over. And if you're taking the under, the only reason you're doing so is to be contrarian. I don't think they can set this line high enough. Has it moved? Let me just check that quickly. It's probably gone up. Yeah, it opened at 51. It's now at 54.5. That's going to continue to go up over and over until game time, I'm sure. So us getting it at 47.5 on the alternate line, even if you have to pay a little juice for the minus 126, I'm not going to say it's free, but it feels like the outcome that will happen. And it's just too hard for me to see the Chiefs losing on this one. Now, if you didn't want to take Chiefs here and you'd rather just take Chiefs to win the Super Bowl at this point, then I get that. But one step at a time for me. So the first one is Chiefs money line and over 47.5 for the game, minus 126. The next one, let's get weird. Let's get weird. This is the good one. This is my favorite one. It's the shootout bet. The same game parlay, Chiefs Bengals. If you want a shootout, put all your eggs in the basket. Tell the Easter Bunny to go home. These are my eggs. I'm hard boiling them and they're delicious. Maybe a pinch of salt. Chiefs money line. I'm sticking with that. I got Chiefs money line all over the place. I just really feel like narrative-wise, it would be so hard to imagine them coming off of that legendary win against the Bills and then losing. Their hype is high. This is a team that performs better when their hype is high. Their defense is healthier than they were last week. They have a distinct advantage against the offensive line, like I'm saying. I don't see them losing. I'm also throwing in Mahomes over 300 yards in this one and Burrow over 300 yards in this one. If we're doing shootout, we're doing shootout. The last time they played, just for reference sake, did they both go over? Let's see. I don't know if Mahomes did. I know Burrow did. Mahomes did not. And I just can't imagine. He got to 259, though. And I just think he's playing better than he was even 3 weeks ago. And their offensive line missing 2 people in that game is worth 41 more passing yards from Mahomes to me. So both quarterbacks over 300 yards. And then I have 4 receivers over 70 yards each. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Playoffs are where stars come to play. You're not going to get to this point, go into Arrowhead or be hosting and not feed your studs. There's nothing either defense is going to do to any of these people. You can double cover them all you want, but then the other one is open. So even if they double cover, it benefits us in this bet. So this is a 7-leg parlay. I get it. It's hard to hit. But talk about synergy. If we're just shooting for a shootout, probably better wording available there, then go with both teams and go with all the studs. I mean, if Gabriel Davis can go for 8 touchdowns, 200 yards, and 4 touchdowns, T. Higgins can do the same shit. So I don't know. And 70 receiving yards, not that much for each of these players. I don't know what scenario, barring someone getting hurt, like the quarterbacks, I guess, are the hardest ones, but they're going to sling it. I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of running in this game. I'm going away from the running. I think it's quick strike offense. I think it's big yards from the get-go, and I think especially if it stays close late, it's going to be the stars just showing out. So we got Chiefs money line, Mahomes over 300 yards, Burrow over 300 yards, Chase over 70 receiving yards, Higgins over 70 receiving yards, Hill over 70 receiving yards, Kelce over 70 receiving yards, lucky number 7 for the 70 yards. Didn't plan it, would have liked to. Plus 21.42. That's the odds on this bet. Plus 21.42. You bet $100, you win over $2,000. That doesn't feel that crazy. This almost doesn't feel like a 7-leg parlay because all the things just feed into each other. If Mahomes throws for 300 yards, you better believe Kelce and Hill are going to have 70 each. If Burrow throws for 300 yards, you better believe that Chase and Higgins are going to have 70 each. Unless Tyler Boyd just destroys, maybe he will. I just think that this is, I don't want to say it's free, but man, those odds are juicy. Maybe the hardest part of that, if you want to leave Chiefs money line out of it and just go for the pure shootout and you don't care who wins, I get that. But I'm going for it plus 21.42. That's the big one. If we hit that, boy, I mean, more than covers everything else. Third bet, number 3, Carmelo. Chiefs money line comes back. I don't like to link one thing to this many different bets because it's a potential killer if the Bengals pull the upset, right? But with that offensive line, I just don't see it happening. I see them needing to keep the tight end in. I see them needing to keep the running back in to block. And all that means there's only 2 receivers down the field, which is why we took the over for both their yards. But still, I can't say it enough how much I'm on the Chiefs here. And I wanted to sprinkle in some on -8 too, because I just think, talk about a team of destiny. They're going to Disney World. But Chiefs money line with Mahomes over 250 passing yards, boy, does that feel free. Even without the lineman, he had 259 in the last matchup, and that was in Cincinnati. And then Mahomes over 25 rushing yards. He really rushes a lot in meaningful games. And I'll pull up his game log and just to read it off for you and prove it. But his postseason game log, aside from the games last year when he was a little bit banged up, so I'm going to exclude last year. But so far this year, he had 69, nice, against the Bills. He had 29 against the Steelers in a game that was a blowout. He still had 29. We're crossing off last year because he had injuries, and I don't think he was the same guy mobily. And in 2019, against San Francisco, he had 29 rushing yards. Against Tennessee, 53 rushing yards. Against Houston, 53 rushing yards. And 2019, those are the 2020 playoffs, technically. It's the 2019 year, but that was the year before. And the 2018 season, which happened in 2019, the playoffs, he didn't have a lot of rushing yards, but he was a kid back then. And so I'm kind of throwing that out the window, and he still had some rushing yards. So I really think when push comes to shove and you need the game, and the Bengals knowing that their defense is pedestrian and needing to drop everybody back, he might rip off 25 in one rush. So that's just a Mahomes. This is a little bit of a balancer too, but that's just Mahomes leading me to the promised land. Chiefs money line, Mahomes over 250 passing, Mahomes over 25 rushing. That gets you plus 165. I really like that. Now, of course, I gotta do one same game parlay on the other game, even though I'm confused by it, and it's a big payout here too. First, under 57.5. I see this being Niners trying to control the clock and having long drives, and they probably have a lot of success doing it. And both defenses are playing at a really high level. This is an alternate line. I think you can take the under on the regular line and it'll work, but that line has been dropping. It opened at 47, and now it's at 45.5. It won't shock me if it gets to 44, although I don't know if it'll cross that number. But I'm buying ourselves a lot more points. This can't be a shootout. It would just shock me unless the Rams just shred their secondary and put up 30, and then it's a comeback mode for the Niners. I think this game under 57.5 is pretty free. I'm also taking Cam Akers under 57.5 rushing yards. He didn't get there last week. He fumbled twice. There's a real chance Sony Michel gets more run, and there's a real chance that the Rams just don't run the ball a lot because it's not going to work. So for a million reasons, I like Cam Akers under 57.5 rush yards, and he's looked spry and good. I just don't think this is the game. On the flip side, I'm taking Elijah Mitchell over 60 rush yards. And there's a few reasons why I like that, and we'll get into it now, but it relates to the other bets kind of. Like I said, I think Kittle has to stay in and block more often in this game because of the defensive line and the front seven of the Rams. I think you'll see a lot of him blocking. That doesn't mean he won't put up good receiving stats too, but they're going to make an effort to give Mitchell the ball. He gets the ball almost 20 times a game always. He's going to have more than 3 yards per rush, and with Kittle blocking more, you're going to see more power opportunity. They're going to make an effort to keep Stafford in that passing game off the field. So I like Mitchell over 60 rush yards. I think you could bump that up to 80 if you really wanted to, but I didn't feel the need. For that same reason, I think if Kittle is staying in to block more, which is hard to predict, but it's the way I'm going with this, then Debo has to be more of a passing threat. Even if Ramsey is on him, they need someone to be the passing threat. And if it's not Kittle, it has to be Debo. And so if Debo is the passing threat and Kittle is blocking, that means Debo is not generally going to be the rushing threat. He's going to get some rushes, and they're going to do some end around. They're going to do weird stuff. I get it. But this game, more than others, I think he does more receiving. Even though that's counterintuitive because of Ramsey, I understand. But I think his physical nature can counterbalance Ramsey. And because they need Kittle to stay in, it works that Debo goes over 50 receiving yards, which I have in this bet as well, and Mitchell goes over 60 rushing yards. So those synergize well for me. And then the cherry on top, the coup de grace, Cooper Kupp over 80 receiving yards. This feels free too. I kind of went a step down on all of these bets from where I think they could go. I think he'll get 100. But overall, that equates to Rams, Niners under 57.5, Akers under 57.5 rush yards. Funny that that's the same number, didn't plan it. Mitchell over 60 rush yards, Kupp over 80 receiving yards, and Debo over 50 receiving yards. Plus 691. Big payout there that I think is really attainable. Like I said, I'm not touching that game too much, but that's my favorite one. And the only other bet I have as of now, which we may add to, always check at Mike Mush Sports for up-to-the-minute stuff, even live stuff, which we will be putting in during the games, and you get analysis and me ranting and yada, yada. I like Chase over 100 receiving yards and Kupp over 100 receiving yards. That's just a star play. That's narrative stuff. I feel like Chase is coming into his own. They're going to force feed him. No one can stop him. And this Chiefs D especially can't stop him. So just the two of them at over 100 receiving yards gets you plus 340. And I could have put Kelsey and Hill in there, but I don't know which one of them will have the breakout day. So I stayed away from that. But I think these two guys are probably the most talented receivers left in the bunch. Just as a straight downfield attacking style. And I think they could both have 50-yard catches. I mean, I don't think this is that crazy for them to get to 100. So at plus 340 for Chase and Kupp to go over 100, I'm really feeling that. 5 bets, like I said, 3 of which have really high payouts, 2 of which are more balancers, and all of which I think we can hit. And after running so hot last week, I mean, hell, if we just hit the plus 2142, we cover everything. If we just hit the plus 691, we have a profitable week, even if we lose the other 4. And even if you just hit the 2 balancers, you're down, what, 1 unit? Not even. So I think all these synergize well with each other. I think all the individual ones synergize well within the games. You know, balance your bankroll. There's only 2 games out here. There's a lot of props. Don't feel like you need to completely crush games just because it's the week before the Super Bowl. Like, look at me. I'm staying away from this Niners-Rams much more than I'm staying away from Chiefs-Bengals because I like one game more than the other. Do that. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't need to be balanced. Just because it's championship weekend and you want to place bets out there doesn't mean they need to be on the spread. It doesn't mean you have to bet a single game at all. But I really like these 5 picks. I'm sure I will add some as we go. 1 unit on each as always for now. And let's just keep this train going. We've been winning. Follow me on the socials like I've plugged 1,000 times. I don't need to say them again. Like and subscribe on the YouTube if you don't mind. It helps the algorithm. We're growing the thing. We're moving in the right direction. And I'm working on getting some graphics up for the different bets and our unit counts and all that kind of stuff, which will go somewhere around here. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Working on it. But thank you for watching. I hope you win. Good luck. Let's play some football. Peace out.